All right, I think we will get started for the sake of time to keep us on time today. So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. I know some people are still joining in. We're really happy to have you here today. I'm Deneen Bertel. I'm the Readiness Coordinator for the Oiled Wildlife Care Network Management Team, for those of you who don't know me, so hello. I want to make sure that you're in the right spot, or that you're on the right webinar. So this is our second town hall, and today we're going to focus on a little bit about our training program. We're going to talk about our upcoming summit, and then also we're going to give you an opportunity to meet our newest member org. But before we get started, I just wanted to go over a little bit about our Zoom today that we're going to be using. So we are in webinar mode for this Zoom today. So you will have audio settings right here. You will be able to unmute yourselves, but you are all coming on muted. Additionally, you have the opportunity to talk to each other via the chat. You can either talk to just the panelists, or you can actually talk to each other. You can say hello to people that you know from other member orgs or people that you know from your member org. So please use the chat. For the Q&A portion today, which will come a little bit later, we will use the actual Q&A function. So if you click on that Q&A function, you will get a pop-up box that looks like the one to the right, and then you'll be able to ask your questions there. And then finally, if you need to leave the meeting earlier when it's time to leave the meeting, if you just use this leave meeting box, or this leave meeting function right here on the far right, you should all see similar to what I'm seeing, if not the same thing. Just use that and that will exit you from the meeting. Moving on, before we actually get into our actual agenda today, many of you may have known or seen that we had a social media contest. So we really wanted to engage people from our network on social media. So we offered one of our awesome hats and also one of our notebooks. So we did a contest and we wanted to use this platform as an opportunity to announce the winner. So we don't know if you're on here or not, but our winner from our contest is Frankie Lill from the Aquarium of the Pacific. If you're on here or not, congratulations. We will be reaching out to you to send you your hat and your notebook. And congratulations and thank you everybody who participated in this contest. We will do more, don't worry. Okay, so a little bit about our agenda today. I don't want to take too much time away from our speakers. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity to welcome our 45th member organization today, and we'll let her speak in just a minute. We're also going to have Kira Mills that speak about our training program and the evolution of the training program. She and Kurt Klumpner, our deputy directors, they collaborated to create a wonderful presentation for you today. And then on to a little bit about a continuing education update. So our responder specialist, Scott Buell, will be talking about that. And then he will go right into our 2020 Planning Summit and our Q&A. So to get right into our agenda today, I'm really excited to welcome Dr. Forrest Gomez, and she's going to speak to us about our 45th member organization, the National Marine Mammal Foundation. So Forrest, I'm going to stop share and I'm going to let you take it away.
Is that working? Okay, awesome. Well, I first just wanted to start by saying thank you. We are, on behalf of the whole organization, very excited and honestly humbled to become members of OWCN. We've already been friends of OWCN for a very long time, but we are really excited to be more active participants. So thank you very much. And I am very quickly going to try to speed talk through who we are and what we do in 5 minutes or less. So we are, again, the National Marine Mammal Foundation. We are a nonprofit, and we're based in San Diego, California. We're a fairly new organization. We were founded just in 2007, but we have grown rapidly and now have over 130 staff members from a pretty varied background. We work locally, nationally, as well as internationally. We were founded by Dr. Sam Ridgway. Some of you may have heard of him before. He is considered by some as the father of marine mammal medicine. He is our president and very active still within our organization, even at 83. He would be mad at me for saying that out loud. He is a wonderful person, a great colleague and mentor, and he still guides us for sure. He actually also still serves as a senior scientist for the Navy's Marine Mammal Program. It was his vision and is now our mission that we improve and protect life from marine mammals, humans, and the oceans through science, service, and education. We do this through a variety of programs, so I'm quickly going to step through those programs so you just get a snapshot of who those people are and what they do. The first one's environmental stewardship. This is a great group of folks that work to investigate any potential environmental impacts on marine mammals. They look a lot at sound, the impacts of sound, and they work a lot in California, but also up in the Pacific Northwest. The next group is our animal care and training staff. This is actually our largest team, and they work to take care of the Navy's marine mammals. We do provide all animal care, training, and veterinary services to the Navy's program. And so these people work very hard to take these animals out into the open ocean every day and take the best care possible of them through their varied skill sets. Next, we have our biologic and bioacoustic research team. This department is led by Dr. Dorian Hauser, which some of you may have crossed paths with before. He works extensively both in physiological research of marine mammals as well as in acoustics, and will respond to stranded cetaceans to perform hearing tests. Next, we have our animal health and welfare team. This is our veterinary team, made up of not only vets, but of course, equally important, our veterinary technicians, as well as our medical research and records staff. This team as well the Navy has set a very high standard for the care that the animals receive. And so the benefit of that is that we have a lot of resources available to us. So they use these resources to take the best care possible of the animals, but ultimately, one of our main goals is to use this opportunity to work with our companions in human care to design techniques and tools that we then can apply out in the field to try to answer large population level questions that are important to marine mammal researchers. We do that through our conservation medicine team, which is multifaceted. We have a lot of different types of people that work within this team. This team is based in Charleston and works under Dr. Lori Schwacke. The veterinary component of this team is under Dr. Cynthia Smith and myself, and based out of San Diego. So one of the main projects and work that we've been doing for quite a while now since Deepwater Horizon is Lori, when she was previously with NOAA, she's now with us, led with Terry Rolls the Natural Resource Damage Assessment post Deepwater Horizon, and looked into the health effects of oil on bottlenose dolphins that were in the footprint of that oil spill. Our veterinary team led the veterinary component of that research, both in the acute phase during the NERDA, and then we have continued to look at this population to try to determine what the impacts are on dolphins over time. And unfortunately, it doesn't look good, with reproduction being heavily impacted, as well as overall health, pulmonary health, etc. We do this work through wild dolphin health assessments. So this is something that we spend quite a bit of time doing. Of course, this is on hold right now, but normally we're in the field quite a bit doing health assessments on individual animals and releasing them. We combine this data with dead animal data as well as boat surveys, and together that's how we answer our questions. We also were heavily involved with VaquitaCPR, which some of you may have heard of. It was a collaborative, extensive effort to try to save some of the remaining vaquita in San Felipe, Mexico. It was an amazing effort. Again, a lot of experts from all over the world gathered together and put together resources. Unfortunately, the vaquita did not respond well, which we knew was an option, or was a possibility from the beginning. It was pretty late in the process with only a handful of individuals left. So although they didn't respond well and we had to abort this mission, good things have come of it, to include reallocation of the resources. And through that, we have established the first rescue center, Marine Mammal Rescue Center in Mexico, the La Paz Marine Animal Rescue Center. Ricky up there in the left-hand corner is running that facility down there using all of the resources left over from VaquitaCPR, and he's doing a phenomenal job. So we're very proud of that. And then also it has spun off a large effort to try to have this not happen again with any other animals. We did not have the data that we needed on the vaquita, and so we're trying to fill those data gaps earlier on other species that are in need right now. So we've been working hard to identify which species this might be, and then as a veterinary team in particular, trying to figure out how we can potentially help. And then last but not least is our education and outreach department, which works hard to get to children and underserved communities to try to inspire conservation, love of the ocean, and ideally develop opportunities for them to become members of our community later in life. So that is us very quickly in a nutshell. I know I went real fast and there's lots more. So if anyone ever wants to reach out and ask questions, please feel free. That's my email. You can definitely contact me directly. So again, thank you for the opportunity, and we are really excited to see how we can help.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Forrest. If anybody has any questions for Dr. Gomez, please put them in the Q&A or reach out to her directly. We are also really excited to have you, and we can't wait to work together in the coming future. So with that, we're going to move right on to our next presenter, which is Kira Mills, and she is the Deputy Director of Field Operations. She and Kurt Klumpner, the Deputy Director of Care Operations, collaborated to put together a presentation that really focuses on the evolution of our training program. So I'm going to turn it over to Kira.
Okay, great. So thank you for the opportunity to give this presentation. And thank you for all of you. I think over 100 of you have logged in today for our second town hall. And you know, it's really fortunate that we have this technology to be able to come together as a network to share ideas and vision and hopes for the future. And that, you know, even during these challenging COVID times, we're able to do that. So thank you very much for signing on. And because we are a network, this is one of those efforts that we've really tried to, you know, to make do of to continue to grow as a network. So the reason why we decided to focus this town hall meeting on our training program is because we recognize that there have been a number of changes during the past few years, actually since its inception, and not only within the training program, but also the requirements for the different stages. And so we thought that this would be a really good opportunity to explain how the program has evolved, where it's come from, and sort of where it's going, or as far as we can tell. So there is, after all, a method to the madness, even though it doesn't always seem that way. So I'm going to try to move to the next slide. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Okay, so the training program goals, OWCN's tagline, and what we constantly strive to achieve in everything that we do is best achievable capture and care. And this really translates into best achievable preparedness and response. So one way in trying to be as best prepared as we can is to make sure that we have the strongest team available in order to respond. And in order to do that, we have to have a really solid, really good training program. So this is really the push behind the training program that has basically existed since 1994. So we want to develop a very strong team of responders that have not only the knowledge and the skills, but also the experience and the drive to be able to respond in times of crisis. So oil spills are times of crisis. And, you know, it's one thing to work together during non-crisis times, and yet another thing altogether to try to respond in a cohesive, efficient form when you have a crisis at hand. So what we've really tried to do within our training program is to try to prepare people as much as possible to be able to respond efficiently. So furthermore, we want this team to be able to use the various field and care protocols that we have developed over the years. And this development and protocols has not been haphazard, but rather it's followed a trial and error pathway based on strong science of what works and what does not work. So we really consider our protocols to be living documents in the sense that we're continually striving to make them better and also to train our teams to use the latest protocols. Okay, so I know a lot of you know the history of OWCN, so this is basically a crash course, a crash sentence. So there have been a lot of changes that have happened in OWCN and within the training programs since its inception in 1994. So the OWCN was established by the Department of Fish and Wildlife Office of Spill Prevention and Response, OSPR, in response to the Exxon Valdez spill in Alaska and the American trader spill in Huntington Beach. OWCN was managed within OSPR from 1994 into 1997 when a research component was added to its mandate. And at that time, it was decided that it was best to fall under the UC Davis Wildlife Health Center. So from the original number of member organizations from the low 20s, as you heard, we've now grown to 45 member organizations, and it's really been pretty amazing to see that the development, the progression, the addition of all of these amazing member organizations. And I think when I started back in 2010, there were 25 member organizations. So yeah, it's grown quite a bit in 26 years. Okay. So one of the first training programs that was developed was called the Basic Supervisor Training. It happened between about 95 and 99. And it was based on initial protocols that were developed by International Bird Rescue. At the time, they were called International Bird Rescue and Research Centers, so IBRRC. So these were protocols that were developed back in the beginning, basically at the start of oiled wildlife response. This was an annual training that was held in each of the 5 regions within the state. And it really was sort of a crash course, 2-day lecture and hands-on course that provided consistent training based on these protocols. It was quick and efficient. Like I said, it was sort of a crash course, providing the best training possible within those 2 days. It built upon the relationship and trying to get that network, the network feeling, and trying to get people to work together and to know each other, which we still do today. And furthermore, it used some of the newly created OWCN facilities at the time, the primary care facilities. So that was the inception of the training program. And then there was an advanced training that was added in 1999. This was more of a hands-on training with limited PowerPoints and lectures. And these trainings, as you can imagine, back in those days, really were a mixture of care and field, because when there was an oil spill, you basically got put to do what needed to be done. So it was sort of a mixture of care and field. And then as things further evolved, it got more stream specific. And I'll talk about that in just a little bit. Okay, so the next major shift in the way that the OWCN offered trainings happened in about 2007. And this was with the creation of webinars, which we still use to this day, but they've shifted a little bit. So at the beginning, we would offer live and somewhat interactive webinars where people would log on, such as what we're doing today. And there was a presenter that presented the information, and the people that were logging on were able to ask questions. So we were able to make it a little bit interactive, not as interactive as in person, of course, but we did what we could. And in addition, we recorded those webinars, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen those webinars. They were recorded webinars from the live events. So we started building up a library of a variety of topics for the webinars. And in addition, in about 2012, we started offering a HAZWOP refresher that was more wildlife oil spill focused, because previous to that, we used to do a refresher in person, which was a lot of work. And so this was a way to sort of streamline that and make sure that people were trained up to respond to an oil spill. So Oilapalooza is one of those events that a lot of you have attended, and it's actually shifted quite a bit from its inception, which began in about 2008. So it started out as being more of a continuing education program or opportunity, and it was very care focused. So since 2008, it's really shifted to be more encompassing of field as well as care. And now instead of every year, we're going to every other year. And in the off year, we offer what's called a summit, which Scott is going to talk about in a little bit. So in addition to the webinars and Oilapalooza, what happened between this period was that we started providing very stream-focused trainings. And by stream-focused, I mean that there were trainings in recovery and hazing, in field stabilization. Like I said, Oilapalooza was really the care-focused training. But then in addition to that, we had recovery, hazing, and field stabilization focused trainings. So what I guess what I want to convey from this slide is that we were really sort of going in the stream focused scenario, and what we tried to do with our new training program is to bring it all together again. So I'll get to that in just a little bit. So a few very key events happened in 2015. One was the Refugio oil spill, which some of you will remember. The other thing that happened was the addition of inland response to our mandate, and that created some additional challenges that we had to tackle at the time. But in addition to that, we also restructured the UC Davis management team and added, instead of just the director and the different streams, we added 2 deputy directors. So as was mentioned, Kurt Klumpner is the Deputy Director of Care Operations, and I've been the Deputy Director of Field Operations since 2015. And one of the first tasks that Mike, the director, told us that we had to do was to reinvent and restructure the training program. And so that was one of the first things that we tackled along with inland response. And so Kurt and I started having meetings to try to reinvent what the training program was going to be. And the 3 things that we really tried to focus on was consistent quality across streams, offering of specialized opportunities within those streams. And we also wanted to make sure that we were including not only staff, but also volunteers and managers as well. So this is what the training program looks like today. It's very different from where we were 26 years ago. And just to give you sort of a brief overview, it's basically a stepwise pyramid shape progression. And so what I mean by that is that when you're an incoming volunteer and you want to learn more about OWCN and Oiled Wildlife Response, you start with the core webinars. So there's 3 core webinars. And the numbers to the left are representative of how many people have taken that to date. So 779 people have taken the core webinars. And then the next level up is called the Basic Responder. And it's a one-day in-person training. And it's meant to be very general. So 390 people have gone through that. And then the next level up is called the Oiled Wildlife Specialist, which is a 2-day in-person training. And that's really the first chance to sort of specialize into what you're more interested in. But in addition to that, it also has a lot of components that are based around the common concepts, which is how we structured the training program. And then finally, the manager level is the top level. And we just rolled out our first manager training just this past, I believe it was April. It was before the whole COVID stuff. So we've done a very strategic rolling out of these different layers. And like I said, we really tried to structure it with the common concepts, common skills in mind, recognizing that there are a lot of common concepts, whether you're in care or field. We also wanted to facilitate the cross-training ability. So we don't want people to be very stream focused. We want the ability for them to be able to respond in different areas, and if they have interest. We wanted to provide a depth of knowledge in at each of these levels. And like I've mentioned a few times already, we wanted to focus really on the networking. So because we are a network, we want to make sure that we're coming together, building that strong team. So in addition to that, I just wanted to briefly mention or re-mention Oilapalooza Summit and full deployment drills sort of complement the training program. So in addition to the 2015 edition of Deputy Directors, in 2018, we added what we call our Readiness Program. So we hired a Readiness Coordinator, who's Deneen, and it's really been instrumental in helping put greater focus and critical analysis on the training program itself. It has a number of other responsibilities, but one of the responsibilities was to execute the training program vision that the Deputy Directors envisioned. But they also do a lot of coordination, not only for the trainings, but for drills, for the member org outreach, for town hall meetings. They're in charge of organizing and keeping up to date the responder database, as well as facilities and equipment. So as you guys know, there are a lot of challenges, including the biggest challenge that I put at the bottom. I probably should have put it at the top, but it's the COVID-19 challenge. But in addition to that challenge, I did want to mention that there's some other challenges. So what we originally considered typical spills, so large marine spills, they're not so typical anymore. We haven't, knock on wood, we haven't had a very large marine spill in a while. So the spills that we're mostly seeing right now are small inland spills. They're pretty frequent, but they have definitely added a huge challenge to how we respond and how we get ready to respond. So I did want to mention that. In addition to that, day-to-day skills versus scaled emergency response. So basically our responders have a lot of skills that if they volunteer at the different member organizations, of course they're going to become very good at day-to-day skills. Sometimes that translates into skills that you can use in an emergency response. But once again, we need to definitely, with our training program, make sure that all of our team members are completely trained up in our protocols and in how best to respond during an emergency event. And then more specialized skills as the response becomes professional. So like I said at the beginning, one of the things that people used to do is basically, if you had to catch a bird, you'd go out and catch a bird, and you'd bring it back to the center, and you would, you know, feed it and care for it. And so the streams were sort of intermixed. So with our training program, and one of the challenges has been to make sure people are efficient at being able to provide the care that we need to provide to the oiled wildlife. And then finally, like I mentioned, COVID-19 has been quite the curveball in the training program. We've had to postpone, cancel, reimagine quite a bit of the training program that we had originally had planned for 2020 and possibly beyond. And I know that Scott and Deneen are going to talk about that in a little bit. So looking forward, starting this year into the future, we don't know how long, but we know that the future is definitely uncertain with these new challenges. And we know that we're going to have to adapt to these new challenges, not only these new challenges, but potentially other challenges in the future. But really our main goal is to provide safe learning opportunities for the network. So our training program may not look the same today as it did 20 years ago, but we are adapting and we are continuing to be committed to providing the best training opportunities. So just a few final thoughts. We are really proud of our training program, but constantly strive to improve it. And as I mentioned, we will continue to adapt to the challenges that we are facing today and to any new challenges that arise. And that we acknowledge that over the years, we have made quite a few changes and shifts to our training program and its requirements for being an OWCN responder. But we are really grateful to all of the network members for your patience, your input, and your continued enthusiasm and involvement in the network. And we are always open to suggestions on ways to improve it. So don't be shy about reaching out. And then just one final slide. So this is a slide of one of the, I think, the basic supervisor trainings. And the people that I want to point out, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but here's Kurt. So he didn't work for OWCN back then. He worked for Bird Rescue. And here's Deneen laughing her head off. We don't know what they're laughing at, but apparently it's pretty funny. And then the other person that we know is Greg Frankfurter. And if any of you recognize the other faces, I would really be, this might be Tamar right here. So, oh, and January.
I think January's in there.
Yeah. So thank you very much for listening, and I will turn it back over to Deneen.
Thank you so much, Kira. Great presentation. Thank you both to you and Kurt for putting that together. So next up on our agenda, I'm going to turn it over to Scott Buell, our responder specialist. I know all of you, if not all of you, many of you know him. He's going to talk to you about continuing education, and then he's going to roll right into talking about our upcoming summit and into the Q&A. So I'm just going to turn it over to Scott for a little while, basically till we're done.
All right, thank you, Deneen, and thank you, Kira. Great presentation. Deneen, can you just confirm for me that you can see that screen all right? Okay. So before I get too deep into this, I did want to kind of answer a quick question. I know Shelby Stout, thank you, Shelby, for attending today. You asked a good question. And so your question was, while Kira was up kind of sharing the update about how things have evolved over the years, the question that we often get is, where do I fit in as far as if I took previous trainings or older trainings, and now there's kind of this new version, and do I have to retake things or go back through the new process? And I know this is a tough answer for me to have to answer because it's always hard, because we don't want it to come across like we're devaluing in any way all of our veteran responders who have been with us for over the 20 plus years and have done great work with us. But the truth is here's the reason why we do ask that you go through the newer format, is that it's been in place since about 2015. And we've had significant operational changes during the last 25 years, not just in our response range and what our typical responses look like such as Kira mentioned, But in addition, even just the technology and the tools that we use, such as us using the Wildlife Recovery app for recovering animals in the field, and OWRM as a medical database on the care side, there are a lot of things that have just shifted enough that we cannot really justify saying that if you took a course back in the day that it would absolutely automatically qualify you to not have to take any of the newer courses. So we do ask that everyone participate through the newer training progression through the pyramid. And our promise to you is that we're going to be adapting that content and changing some of the formats as we need based on the challenges of the world and of our training needs. But we're going to keep that general progression pathway stable so that you guys can work your way up the ladder, and there won't be as much drastic shifts is our plan. But as far as the pathway, but the content and the format will always kind of be evolving based on the current needs of the network. So hopefully that kind of answers that question. And we can talk more during the Q&A. Shelby, if you have further questions, just pop us another question on the Q&A. All right, so my job here though is to kind of briefly talk about, so I just have about 5 minutes, and I just wanted to give you guys a quick update because I thought this would be a nice format to share what we're thinking as far as the continuing education piece of this. So, you know, Kira and Kurt did such a great job putting together the vision of this new kind of training pyramid and progression. Denise and I have been working at trying to execute it on an annual basis to make sure we're getting nice flow through the system of responders getting their training completed. But then the question came up earlier, but it really hit ahead this year as we had some deadlines coming up as far as people's expiration dates, as far as they've taken some of these early courses, but it's been a few years now. And what's next? How do I maintain my status? How do I maintain engaged and know what's going on with any updates? So kind of put together this diagram here to kind of show what our thought process is right now. So again, you have these four ladders or steps of the training program, and you can advance up to up the ladder as your interest, based on your interest. But our kind of goal, so I kind of want to state this bottom line goal here in red, is our goal is to have annual engagement with you guys as best as possible. So we definitely want to interact with you guys, have some sort of interaction with you on an annual basis as our responders. It's tough, you know, we have a large state and we have over 1,500 responders in the database. So that's a large geographic range and a large community that we have. But our goal is definitely to interact with you so you're up to date on what's going on with the Oil Wildlife Care Network. But then to break it down to something a little bit more tangible, we kind of started to break it down like this. So for those first two rungs of the ladder, so as a core responder or as a basic responder, so whether you just did the online courses or you did the online courses and you were able to attend our one-day in-person training, then we're looking for you to hopefully be able to do at least complete one engagement every 3 years as kind of our minimum requirement that we're actually going to try to enforce and follow up with you if this doesn't happen. So we want you to participate in things like if we do an online scheduling drill for your region, and say we have a scenario based in San Diego and we hit up everyone in Region 5 to log onto their profiles and express availability. That'd be an example of an engagement or an interaction where you show to us that you know what's going on, you received our email, your email is still up to date, and you know how to log into your profile. Another example would be attending a full deployment drill as a volunteer if it's in your local area. Attending Oilapalooza or a summit that we're going to talk about in a little bit. It could be spill mobilization, such as volunteering during a response. And all of those are great, but we understand, again, given the geographic range, we can't necessarily require that as a hard rule, because sometimes with the rotation of events throughout the state, maybe if you're up in Eureka, it's going to be a little hard for you to attend something in San Diego. So then we added this kind of last bit, which is an OWCN online update. So we'll be working on that moving forward, and you'll see some emails coming out shortly from me addressing this, but we're going to start to provide an annual update, and that's going to be kind of just a OWCN update 101 to share any kind of pertinent news and announcements and information that might be pertinent to you as a responder, so that you know what's going on if there's any changes. We are already talking about for this year, what we'll likely do is take a nice recording, because we actually did that as part of the beginning of our Oilapalooza conference, and we can actually take that recording that we recorded on Zoom and then just post it online so everyone can watch that this year and it can satisfy that requirement. For next year, what we'll likely do is we'll create some custom content. So maybe we'll do a Zoom meeting like this, or maybe we'll just create an interactive webinar where we can share with you guys updates. So that's kind of the general responder request for engagement. Then for the advanced responder, so for you, those of you that have gone all the way up, so there's about almost 100 of you that have gone up to our specialist level or a manager level, that kind of top tiers here. We're going to ask a little more. We're going to ask that as an advanced responder, you know, we are going to look to you first as some of our top responders, and so we really want you to engage with us every year. So at least complete one of these things every year. And again, similar thing: full deployment drill, attend Oilapalooza or a summit, be mobilized as a volunteer or a staff during a spill. This one here is kind of specific to one of the opportunities afforded to those that go up the ladder, but sometimes we may even ask you to come in and help teach a component of a specialist training or a manager training. And then lastly, that online update. So say that your year is crazy and you have a lot going on and you're unable to get to one of these physical things, then we could also just have you complete an online update that would allow you to keep in the know of what's going on with OWCN. And so kind of our focus here was to with the continuing education plan, was to round out our training program. We had built the foundation, we had built the base. Now this is kind of how can we maintain it moving forward. Each time you go up a rung in the ladder, that's going to go ahead and reset your expiration date. So a lot of the expiration dates on your profile, when you look at your responder profile, will be 3 years from the date that you completed that task. So for example, if you took the core webinars a couple of years ago, but then you attended a BRT this year, then that expiration date would reset for 3 years from the date you attended the BRT this year. We want to maintain multiple ways to remain active and up to date. And so that's kind of in an effort to maintain the best achievable engagement. So we use that term a lot for best achievable capture and care of wildlife, but it's also kind of our best achievable engagement with you as responders, because we want to make it achievable so that you guys aren't stuck, having to meet some requirement that is unattainable for you. Or this last piece, we want to try to eliminate repeating the same content just to fill the checkbox. Okay, we don't really want you guys to have to just take the same webinars over and over again to prove to us that you're committed. That's not our goal. We want to give you guys good, valuable information that can apply directly for you guys being the best responders you can be during a response. Some other key changes I wanted to mention that I know Janine and Kira both mentioned as far as with COVID-19. This on the right here you can see is our training calendar. And one of the things that is that we had to do is kind of revise quite a bit of this given some of the limitations of COVID. So one thing is that you'll see that in August, we shifted to a virtual drill. So you'll be getting a lot more information about this via email in the coming months. But we are working on basically trying to create a tabletop drill where we're going to actually run through a scenario-based situation. We're going to allow some involvement on Zoom. And we're going to actually focus a little bit on that advanced responder level to try to get folks that have taken recently the manager training to actually be in kind of decision-making roles in this scenario, this drill. We're still figuring out exactly how we're going to do volunteer roles. We do have the option to have observers that could watch some of the planning sessions or the discussions. So as far as from a volunteer level, we're still trying to figure out exactly that role and that availability for this virtual drill. But you'll hear all about that soon. But that's going to be an entirely virtual drill, which will be new for us, but it is something I think we can run during these times. But also I think there will be some value there because it'll really drive some great discussion and kind of actually have us put our current COVID-19 adaptations that we have a plan for both field operations and care operations. We can actually kind of quote unquote test that based on a scenario and really talk through some of the challenges we might face. You'll see that the first in-person course as of now is not slated until late September. It's going to be a basic responder training in Cordelia. And some of the adjustments we'll be making, as long as things do not drastically shift. Obviously, we're watching the COVID-19 scenario nationally and globally all the time. But if things stay stagnant or head in a better direction, then we hope we can hold some small gatherings in the fall. But we're going to really focus on smaller class sizes. So we're going to cut signups to a lower number than usual, probably about half to 2/3 of what we normally do. We're going to maintain that we host in large venues where there's lots of space, so we're not all crammed in small spaces at all. We're going to minimize shared equipment based on how we run our activities and our teaching styles, but also really just minimize shared equipment, period, even just passing pens at sign-in and things like that. We're going to really eliminate those. We're going to provide PPE so people have access if they want to have face masks when arriving, for example, and hand sanitizer. And then we're going to have additional sanitization procedures. So for anything that we are touching, we're going to go ahead and have a plan in place to wipe that down with and sanitize it on a regular basis. So those are just some examples. And then I also wanted to mention that we're going to be hosting the virtual summit in September. So that's what I'm going to talk about next is our planning summit. And normally we gather people together physically, often at UC Davis, to go ahead and have a day of brainstorming, which we love. It's really a great way to connect with one another in person. But this year we're going to try it virtually, which the downside is we don't get to see each other in person, but the plus is that we actually may be able to increase involvement a little bit because we can virtually connect with a larger audience this way. So keep your eyes out for some emails regarding that as well coming this summer. And then just to share how our process works is that we'll reassess everything in late November regarding the 2021 training program plan. And so our goal, as we did this year, is to finalize dates and locations basically by the end of the year, so that by somewhere around the holidays and around late December 2020, we'll be announcing the plan for 2021 and sharing a calendar such as this for the next year. All right, so moving on to the summit here. Just want to check my chat real quick to make sure I gotta go to speed. All right, great. So for the summit, what we're doing is we're going to be hosting that again on September 30th. And the event's goal, if you're wondering what am I talking about when I say a planning summit, this I definitely want to give a shout out to Kurt. It was kind of a nice brainchild of his early on, as far as he saw a similar process taking up place in the Pacific Northwest with some different stakeholders regarding spill response, and he thought it was a good idea. And I think it's been a really cool addition to our engagement. So to engage directly, our goal of this event is to engage directly with all 45 OWCN member organizations and offer the opportunity for direct input toward network improvement. So what that really means is that we're trying to gather the minds and the thoughts of all of our responders that are all from different member organizations, have different perspectives, and see if there's some areas that are identified as high priority areas that could use some improvement. So that could be things like, I don't understand how to respond, the training program is confusing, for example, and that was a working group we had previously. It could be something like, we should strive to do better and have more of a green response and be more sustainable during our responses. And that was a working group that was created based on that idea. So just that kind of concept. And the idea is to be able to get that input directly. And then our goal, to kind of speak to the participation goal, is to try to get about at least two representatives from each member org, so that we really get that representation from the entire network, which is getting harder and harder with more member orgs, but that still remains our goal. We'd love to hear from all of you guys from all your different organizations. And then the process again is that day of brainstorming, which will be virtual this year, and then we develop these working groups. And what the working groups are tasked with is they have 1 year to meet, usually via conference call, maybe on once a month time frame or so, to gather and kind of take that brainstorm and the kind of list of ideas and turn it into actionable products or outcomes. And then we have a representative from that group present those findings and kind of those products at the next OWCN, which will be in 2021. So as part of the Q&A session, if you have any questions about this event, please feel free to ask those. But then also in addition, if you have ideas for the summit, say a topic idea, we're happy to hear those at any time. You can email them to me at any time in the next week or two. We're kind of gathering ideas, so feel free to email them to me, owcn@ucdavis.edu. Or you right now, if you have a topic right on the top of your mind, you can just put it in the chat and just let us know a topic that you think would be a good topic for discussion at the summit this year. We're gathering all those ideas, then we'll probably end up actually putting those ideas back out to the network for a voting process to see which ones rise to the top as the most pertinent. All right. So I think we are now to the question and answer session. So wanted to see, I think we are good to go to have, seeing a thumbs up from Deneen. So I think we're good to go to start our Q&A session. So please submit any questions on the Q&A Zoom feature. We will do our best to answer all the questions now. But if we don't get to anything, we'll definitely follow up directly via email for any unanswered questions. So let me go to my Q&A here. Chat box up, my Q&A box up here. Ooh, and I like that idea. So speaking of Mo Flannery, nice idea for the summit. I really like that. That's a great idea. Mo, give me a thumbs up if you're okay with me sharing that with the entire audience here. See, you shared it with us on chat via to the panelists. Okay, she says yes. So she said, summit idea, increasing diversity, equity, inclusion, and access in the network. Obviously a timely subject, and I think it's a great one. It's a fantastic one. I was just reading, I was reading some different things about diversity or lack thereof in certain areas of science, even ocean science specifically, and it is something that we all need to strive for. I think that's a great idea and would be a wonderful, wonderful discussion topic. All right, we got a couple questions here. Oh, good old Richard, yeah. All right, let's see. We've got a couple here. Let's start with Richard's question here. Let's see, Scott and Kira. A while back, there was some discussion on OWCN first responder team leads with respect to stage trailers, et cetera. I haven't seen those mentioned much in the training pyramid, or is that on hold, or is it absorbed into another area? So let's start with that part. And maybe I'll have Kira. Would you be willing to answer that question?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for that, Richard. Yeah, we were really excited about the first responder idea that was actually brought up in the first summit. And we will continue to pursue it, but it's a little bit on hold right now. At the moment, we're trying to figure out how exactly it's going to fit into the sort of the recovery and the field operations as sort of a subset of that. So it doesn't mean that we've forgotten it altogether, but we're just, it's a little bit on hold. So thank you for bringing that up, Richard. And we will get back to you once we figure it out.
Yep. Good answer, Kira. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it's a really good idea. And I think it's in the works still, but still trying to fully flesh that out. And that was actually partially an idea that was from the summit, right? So there you go. Another question here is, with many orgs reducing or releasing volunteers due to the pandemic, and possibly fewer new volunteers are joining, not sure, but maybe, thus maybe fewer OWCN newbies. So how are you expanding your base? That's a great question, and I'll start with a stab, and then feel free, any other OWCNers that want to chime in, feel free. But I know with us, we are blessed with a robust, a strong, and a dedicated network. We have an awesome database filled with 1,500 amazing responders. And luckily, unless it's a terrible spill, a large scale spill, right, we hopefully won't need 1,500 people on day one. So we feel pretty good as far as where we're at numerically. And so really what we're focusing on a lot now, Richard, is trying to increase exactly things like this, increase our engagement with our network, to really touch base on a more regular basis, to engage and answer questions, and to feel more on the same page, so that we can be better aligned and more prepared to jump into action together. We obviously never know what the next spill is going to bring and what type of response it might require. Some are very small, as Kira mentioned, and are more staff driven as far as staff roles and staff positions, but others are larger and going to need a really huge volunteer base. And that's where I come in and have to really be the point person for that piece. And I feel really confident that our network is prepared and ready to respond if needed, again, with such dedicated folks for trying to protect our wildlife out there in California. So I feel really good about our numbers, so I'm not too worried about shrinking numbers in the short term. If this becomes a long-term issue and we see long-term decline, then yes, it is something that we'll have to further strategize how to reach out. But it really starts with reaching out with our contacts at each member organization and trying to make sure that they are encouraging their volunteers and their staff to sign up with us and to know how to get involved with OWCN if they're interested. So that's kind of a key piece as well. All right. We'll go ahead and move on to the next question, if that's all right here. Let's see, is there a follow-up email that we can forward and share with others that would potentially be new volunteers? Great question. So for anyone on this call that's wondering, how do I recruit and help others get involved? That's a great question. So please, if you don't mind, just shoot me an email at OWCN, so OWCN@ucdavis.edu. And what I'll do is I can share with you a private link. And so just note that this link is not meant to be public, so please don't post on social media to the masses. But it's a private link to create a responder profile in our database. And that's really the first step towards involvement with us. And what you can do is you can share that link with anyone who is 18 years of age or older and an active volunteer or staff member at any of our 45 member organizations, including now in MMF as well. So that's kind of the deal, is that if you are an active volunteer or staff at one of our member organizations, then you're allowed to join the database, and that's where you learn about a lot of things, a lot of opportunities coming up, both training opportunities, events, engagement, updates, etc. So that's a good first step. So feel free to shoot me that email. I can maybe put that in the follow-up to this town hall. When I post the recording, I'll make sure to post that email as well. Okay, moving on to the next question here. We got Shelby Stout. What are the requirements for primary care facilities, and how does OWCN staff ensure member organizations maintain those standards? So I'm gonna let Kurt maybe take first stab on this, and then maybe Mike can chime in if needed. How about that, Kurt? You okay with that?
Sure. So do I hit the answer live, or do I have to do anything with that, Scott, or just talk?
No, well, yeah, you just talk, and we'll just track it.
So historically, the primary care facilities were actually designated partly by legislation And so there are facilities that we consider primary care facilities, and they have a variety of kind of capacities that are actually laid out, I believe, in the Wildlife Response Plan for California, which is online if you want to actually read it. And then in terms of really how do we ensure that they're maintaining them, there are a number of different things that we do. Obviously, the full deployment drill is something that we try to do to move around to different facilities on an annual basis. We try to have other sorts of drills that evaluate them. We're constantly working to visit centers and maintain personal contacts. We have a number of people who are involved in the facilities, the Readiness Program, obviously. Tim Williamson, who many of you know, who has been with the organization for years and years and years, essentially from the start with a kind of an interlude in between. Having, at least in terms of care, having people go to mostly the primary care facilities and try to volunteer or work, again, to both evaluate the facility, but also to develop relationships with some of those key staff there. And we also have a, trying to think what it's called, essentially a facility improvement program where we, depending on what our budget is for any given year, provide funding for opportunities for the facilities to submit an idea that they would like to do to improve their specific facility. So a number of different ways. If you have further suggestions, obviously, Shelby, you're at a primary care facility for marine mammals. Love to hear about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Kurt. And Mike, did you have anything to add? Or I think that was a great answer. So just throwing it out there in case you wanted to add anything.
Nope. That was a great answer.
All right. Fantastic. Okay, so moving on to one more question here. We've got about 3 more minutes, so we're right on time, and I've got a nice question here from Diana. Thank you for this. For responders who haven't automatically reset their engagement timeline by participating in at least one training-related engagement every 1 to 3 years respectively, will they be communicated with about that requirement and told what steps they can take to be eligible, or is tracking that the responsibility of the member org or the individual? That's a wonderful question, and it's luckily I can answer that, and it's actually a pretty straightforward answer. We are going to work on communicating it to you. So while I do want to say, just as a disclaimer, that it's kind of like the healthcare system, right? We should all be our own advocate for our own health. At OWCN, I do want you to be an advocate for yourself as far as keeping tabs on where you're at with your responder profile and any upcoming expiration dates. Feel free to reach out with questions. That's always a great thing to do in general. But our goal, and my goal, as far as my job, will be to try to reach out to you guys with reminders. So just like for all of you who are HAZOPER certified, you get a reminder every year saying, hey, your HAZOPER is going to expire next month. You better take that online refresher. Same idea, is that I'm going to get in the habit of actually responding and reminding folks that an upcoming deadline or expiration date is approaching, and that what we would like you to do is X, Y, and Z. So basically lay it out for the options available. Most often what that will be, if I'm sending a reminder email, will probably be in regards to the online option, saying if your expiration date is arriving in the near future, here's an option that you can satisfy it online. So expect that in the near future, but also, again, always great for you guys to keep tabs as well. All right, we got one more question in just in the nick of time. Nicely done, Julie. So we have been working hard during COVID with reduced volunteers at clinic to encourage and help volunteers to sign up with OWCN and have them at least take the core webinars. Do you have any ideas or ways you can partner with orgs to encourage and help get those people at least the minimum training? Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if anyone else on the panel wants to answer this, but I'm happy to answer it as well. Anyone else have any initial thoughts? All right, I'm happy to take a first stab. So I think your question is very valid as far as we're constantly thinking of ways and ideas to further engage folks. And I know for many of you, some of you know, I came from the Marine Mammal Center. I was on the other side of the house as far as I was a point of contact at a member organization. And I understood that, my thoughts were initially towards at that time TMMC activities and operations, and it was kind of secondary. I think, oh yeah, and OWCN. So I understand that it's not always the first thing that comes to mind for responders, but with that said, I think that your point's really valid. There's a lot of downtime right now and a lot of opportunity for online training. So it's even a better time to kind of engage folks who maybe don't have a lot going, a lot that they're able to contribute currently in person at their facilities or their organizations. So it's a good point. So maybe what I'll do is I'll try to maybe do some more direct outreach via email, but also I open it up to you guys. That could even be a summit ideas. How can we better engage with you guys? So we often ask that. During our working group with one of the summit groups last year, we actually talked a bit about that. We were talking about what works best for you guys from your perspectives. Do you like reminder emails? Do you like hearing from us on a regular basis, or does it get kind of turn into white noise and we're kind of just annoying you guys? And so are there other ways we could do it? So we try to, for example, one thing we had added is a lot of times we do in-person trainings. We've added an engagement element. So we'll actually try to gather and just do like a get together and mingle with one another physically. Now, again, this may be different a little bit with COVID moving forward in the short term, but we would actually physically gather and just try to update one another and engage folks. And that was a good opportunity to bring new people in and explain how to get involved with OWCN. So I think those are some examples we've done, and I'll continue to try to think of more ways to actively engage. But I do think your point's valid that maybe right now, I should be sending out even a little bit more, maybe some additional outreach materials, trying to get people involved and excited. But I think to ultimately answer your question, the quick answer is if you ever have anyone interested or you're curious about ways to engage your volunteers at your organization, just reach out to me and we can have a one-on-one and we can talk through some ideas. And there's a lot of ways to do that, I think.
Hey, Scott, I have an idea. What about,
Yeah.
could we do some sort of a competition where, you know, maybe it's on a yearly basis, the organization that gets the most new responders, you can do it in different levels or whatever. Maybe they get a net bottom pen, or maybe if there's a certain level, it's we give them a pool, or give them some sort of a prize every year so that people can, you know, feel like they're helping their organization by doing this, as well as helping if there's an oil spill.
I like that idea. I think that's a great idea. I love contests, so, and I think they're a great motivator just for fun. So yeah, that's a great idea. So let's remind me, Kurt. Let's talk offline on that as far as ways we could further develop that concept.
Sure.
And just to mention, Richard, good idea as far as he responded, just saying partnering. Sometimes a way to engage is to find that mentor. So have them partner with someone who's already actively involved with OWCN, and the new person kind of learn from them how it works, learn the ropes, and get motivated and kind of see what it's like as a responder. And then Julie just chimed in as well with group online trainings. And that is something we allow. So I think that some people have asked that in the past. So I know we're a little over time, so I'll try to be fast here. But I just want to mention that, you know, we've done that in the past and we do allow that. If you do a group online training, all you have to do is if you log into our software and it says, you know, that Julie is watching this webinar, but in fact, it was on a big screen and 10 volunteers watched it. You can just email me. I trust you guys. You can just email me and give me the 10 names of the 10 responders that were in that room, and I will apply credit for them. I just need you guys to be honest with me, and I also need them to have a responder profile. Those are the only two requirements. And as long as they have that, then we can do that. And it's a really good idea. All right, Deneen, all yours.
Thank you, Scott. Well, that hour went really fast. So thank you everybody for sticking with us for an extra few minutes. So let's give a virtual big round of applause for all of our speakers today, and also to all of you for taking time out of your day to join this webinar. And please look out for future opportunities. We will continue to look for ways to engage with you. And again, we're always here for questions or anything that you need. Thank you to everybody again, and we'll definitely be connecting with you all soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Day.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your time.
Take care. Nice to see everyone's
Bye.
name, even if we couldn't see you.
Yeah, thank you all.